Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Energy Show on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Palavita. I'll be one of your panelists today as we're going to discuss issues relating to a sector that's very seldom discussed, which is the energy sector. With that, we bring in the president of the Pod TV network, hailing from the Raleigh-Durham area, Kim Calhoun. And then we're going to reach all the way up into the New York City area and bring in
Peter,
who also heads up the Wall Street Hackers. Peter, we're going to start with you on the energy sector. What is going on right now with energy stocks, and what should people be looking forward to? Reduced cost in energy or increased cost? What are we looking at in terms of the energy sector?
Well, in terms of energy stocks, that's really for Wall Street hackers. And but my general point is you better own some energy, because this is a place where it's going to drive inflation for years, along with unemployment. And it's the best place. It was the best place to be last year invested. It's probably going to be the best place for the next 10 years. I love pipelines, and we covered that on the Wall Street Hackers, although right now we're doing a series on international dividend stocks. So energy stories of the week. The U.S. will be adding 100,000 barrels a day of supply from Venezuela. Now, Venezuela has terrible environmental regulations and, to boot, a dictator. But we want to get our 100,000 from them because you can't produce it in the United States. And this is one of the three major issues I have with U.S. energy policy. So we just ship our production overseas to countries that are hostile or, have other issues like dictatorship, and that have terrible environmental regulations, which is why we're going to get into that this show. We're going to be addressing whether the world can even do anything on carbon and climate change. We're going to get into that. But this is one of the reasons why we're not doing well with that, because we'll just ship it all to another country and they can pollute as much as they want or close. Another story, Tesla was actually the U.S.'s best selling luxury car for the first time. I was surprised by that. They actually outsold Mercedes and BMW in sales. They had 484,000 new car registrations, and that was up 41%. So Tesla's doing okay on sales. In another Tesla story, however, they just recalled 362,000 vehicles, which is almost the same amount they sold last year, as its self-driving systems allow travel through intersections in an unpredictable manner. So this is not very confidence building in terms of the self-driving system, for sure. Also, interesting story, the California Policy Center's co-founder said the EV push is bringing the California electric grid near collapse. And other analysts are saying the same thing. Here's his quote: "Our ability to import energy as well as our ability to generate energy from renewables just isn't there." He's talking about California. Storage isn't there, or the transmission lines as well. So a lot of people are talking about now they're going to have rolling blackouts in California. You can want to do things in energy. You can want to reduce pollution, and we're going to cover that in a minute. But then there's reality of what you're actually doing, and it's not pretty. So so let's get into the panel discussion of the week. And then I'm going to do a little background, and then we're going to get into it deeply. The question is, if and assuming climate change is a worldwide threat, can the U.S. and the world do a lot or even anything to mitigate the threat? So a quick background. Number one, the last 2 weeks we've been discussing, is climate change a worldwide threat? And, we look at both sides. I'm not, you may feel, it has to be one side or the other. But I always tell people, look at the other side of any issue. Google it just to see what the other side is. So the strongest argument we had for it was very strong. And that was, if you look at 800,000 years of history, carbon dioxide was always within a range until 1950. And since then, it's more than doubled. It's been climbing and climbing. And if you do experiments in a lab with carbon dioxide where you add it to a closed container, you shine light on it or heat, it retains more. So this is of concern. I mean, some experiments are showing that we're adding the carbon dioxide that we're definitely adding to the atmosphere could be dangerous. On the other side, the strongest arguments against are if you look at the 800,000 years of actual temperature history, we're still within the same range up and down. Now we are on the upside, but we're only maybe 2/3 up towards the top. Still, we're not out of the range. And also for the last 5,000 years, we've been ending an ice age, and that's inarguable too. And temperatures are already up 4 to 7 degrees, not counting any industrial effects. I mean, it's been happening for a long time. So for this discussion, now we're going to assume that it is a worldwide threat, so we can dig deeper into the second question of, let's say it is a worldwide threat, then can the world even do anything, or a little bit, or about it? And just a little more background on the actual results so far, and what's going on. The Manhattan Institute says a single lithium battery requires 500 tons of minerals. So it may a lot of 500 tons of minerals for one battery. So the mining itself creates a ton of pollution. Then we know that 80% of EV energy right now, they have to get the electricity from somewhere, so they get it from fossil fuels, largely 80% oil and gas and some coal. And then according to the Manhattan Institute, the break even for an EV in pollution is 60,000 miles. So yeah, an EV helps, but not until you hit 60,000 miles. It's not making that big a difference because of all this upfront pollution. Another fact is the realities of what has happened so far, and then we'll open it up. If you look at world carbon emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, in 22, it was higher than 21. In 21, it was higher than 20. If you look at US, where we're supposedly doing so much, or the world is doing so much, or whatever, carbon emissions were higher in 22 than 21, and higher in 21 than 20. So things have not been going the right direction, partly because of terrible strategies and partly because increasing world population and all the other factors. So I open it up to the panel. The question again is, assuming it's a threat, can the world mitigate some of the damage, a lot of the damage? Can it not do anything? Is it hopeless to begin with in terms of the threats? Kim, what would you like to say?
Well, so, today in the middle of the winter, it's 82 degrees. It's been 70 to 80 degrees all week, which is very uncommon for us. So, every time I hear, climate change and stuff like that, the little things like this make me wonder what's really going on. One of the other things.
I just have to throw something in, though. I just heard today that there's a huge snowstorm and a huge problem in the north and in the Midwest. So
we're going to split in half. The world's going to shift and we're going to split. Right. But one of the things that concerns me the most is our oxygen. Okay. And then it has been depleting because the majority of our oxygen comes from the ocean. I've read, various different research on this. Some say 50%, others say 70%, but that's still a lot. And our coral reefs.
Wait, Kim, I need to clarify because I'm concerned myself. You're saying 50% of our oxygen is gone. What do you mean by 50 and 70%?
Well, they say 50 to 70% comes from the ocean.
I see. Okay, 50%.
So, but what has happened is the coral reefs and the plankton that provide it have been dying off faster than what it can grow. And so we have lost a vast amount of the exact thing that generates our coral reefs, most of it due to gas pollutions and other kinds of air pollutions causing all of that to die. And there's some other things going into the ocean killing this as well. Now, there has been a scientist who has created a means to regrow the coral faster than it has in the past. So that's that. I mean, so we are doing some good things. The other thing is I did a little research on this, and the countries that have reduced drive-throughs have cleaner air, more opportunity for better oxygen and for the ocean to have.
So what's a drive-through, Kim? I don't know. What
a drive-through, like McDonald's drive-through.
Oh, okay.
So because what happens is the cars sit and idle, right?
Oh.
So, and a lot of the major city areas that I have traveled to worldwide, they make everything just so convenient. You don't need to drive anywhere. So they've reduced their amount of gas pollution there, trying to help the environment. So I think that there are ways to do it. We're not looking at it logically. I think we need to do that, and we need to prioritize what's more important too, because I think our oxygen is very important, and the coral reefs dying faster than it grows concerns me.
So, Kim, before we move to Nick, is your conclusion that we can do a little bit, a lot, or very little to mitigate this threat if it's a worldwide threat?
It's up to us. I mean, we have to do it. We just
Okay,
have
so
to
you're saying
do
it
it.
is possible, we have to
It
do
is possible. It's possible to cure it. It's possible to fix the whole problem. But the thing is you got to convince people to get off their lazy, bony butts and do it.
Okay, good. Nick, what do you think?
Well, yeah, it really is, Peter. It's more of a long-term problem than a short-term problem. What I mean by that is Social Security will go bankrupt before this problem hits us.
True.
Medicare will go bankrupt before this problem hits us. We may enter into a nuclear disaster before this problem hits us. This is
Very true.
This is how far
Improbable, but true.
possible.
But Medicare is going to go bankrupt.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying we have possibly a better chance, at least in our lifetime, to see a nuclear war take place, or at least a nuclear discharge take place, a tactical nuclear weapon somewhere, than climate change actually affecting us, because it's a long-term systemic problem. I do follow the IPCC studies, and 97% of the people that are in the scientific community say that it is an anthropomorphic issue, which in English means people are the ones that are creating the carbon dioxide to be released and to create the warming of the climate. With that, of course, with this long-term horizon, you actually have plenty of opportunity to mitigate that, which right now things are being put into place to actually mitigate it. So it's not really even a huge problem unless you're a young lady in Sweden who likes to get a lot of attention by going to the United Nations and screaming at people. Then it gives you a lot of attention. Or you're a former vice president of the United States who likes to get donations by screaming about the problem. So we do have, unfortunately, a group of people that are benefiting financially by screaming about this problem, but they're not looking at it from any form of intellectual or scientific data whatsoever. So what I do is I see a problem that, frankly, Peter, is mainly under control. Now, if we went to Social Security, Medicare, and our national debt, those are out of control. You go to potentially nuclear holocaust, that is actually out of control. But we don't want to talk about that because it's more fun for us to talk about climate change.
So that's your conclusion is we are possibly already mitigating the risk.
Yes.
And things are in place that will help it. And of course, your concerns are right. When Wall Street Hackers, we were just discussing the Medicare and Social Security debts and the other worldwide.
We have serious problems that are out there that
are shorter term,
They're shorter term and not in control, that should take national precedence over the climate issue.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we feel better because of a couple of people screaming about it, making money off of it, to talk about it. But frankly, I'm almost at this point not in a situation where that it's really even a national priority or an international priority.
Well,
Nick, we could fix that, because you can fix it by creating jobs, right? And jobs create money flow, right? So you create jobs and the money starts flowing and circulating, because that's also what we need to do. We need to circulate that money out of your rich people's pockets,
Right. I don't think it's that simple. Again, wait, let me throw in a few points now. So first of all, we were just discussing this on Wall Street Hackers. Right. There are shorter term problems on one side. Medicare and the national debt is going to affect a lot of people. The economy, Kim's right too. You have to get the economy in shape to have the strength to devote the resources to help fix this problem. But here's some of my conclusions. One, I don't think that things are in place at all to fix it, unfortunately. If you accept the premise that it's world threatening, I believe there's possibilities to fix it. But first of all, I looked at the actual forecasts. So we all hear, solar's coming, wind's coming, hydro's coming, and everything will be great, and we'll be running on EVs, which, we just discussed, use a lot fossil fuels anyway and require a ton of mining. But so I looked to two sources that I've looked at for years: the International Energy Agency and the U.S. Information and Energy Information Agency. These are got to be two of the most important data hubs for information. So here's what they say, and it doesn't sound good to me. You think, oh, solar and wind, right? So the International Energy Agency, sees global oil demand peaking in 2040 at 115 million barrels a day. And we're doing, I think, 101 now. So they see it climbing, oil use, despite the solar and the wind that we hear so much about. Oh, it's changing everything. And then they see it dropping after that to 2050. But even then, it's supposed to be higher than now. Then their forecast for natural gas demand is 15% higher in 2030, and in 2030, and then continue to increase to 2050. So they see higher by far, about 15% just to 2030, natural gas demand. Another fossil fuel, more demand. Now, I will say coal, they see different scenarios, but under one of their scenarios, the range is a lot. Some, they say, oh, we're going to reduce coal by half. Other scenarios, they have zero reduction in coal just about to 2050. So, you hear, oh, well, the solutions are there. But then let's look at the United States, because that was an international agency. The U.S. Energy Agency, they project a 28% increase in world energy use by 2040. We've discussed this on the show already. Developed world is gaining population, gaining resources. They want heat to cook with. They want to drive cars or transportation. They want to heat their homes, air condition their homes. This is reasonable. It's hard to say no to them. But so they're forecasting a 28% increase in energy use. Oil, they're looking at about, these are really rough numbers. I just pulled them off a chart, about 12% increase to 2040. Natural gas, a 38% increase to 2040. And coal, they have as flat to 2040. So where is solar and wind? This is rhetorical, but where is solar and wind coming to save the day? Not under the current scenarios that I see the forecasts. And if you look at the last 2 years, as I said, carbon increasing worldwide, it's not going the right way if you're concerned about this. And however you are concerned, it is a concern. It may not be as immediate as Social Security and Medicare and those problems, but it is a concern. It's a possibility. And I don't think that there's a lot they're doing to mitigate it unless they change radically. And I don't think they can even do a lot, probably. The other conclusion is technology has to be the answer. It's the only answer. And these are the two strategies that drive me crazy. Number one, equal attack against natural gas, oil, and coal by the United States and the world. No, all fossil fuels are not equal. So what happened in the last few years, why carbon went up, is they attacked natural gas, refusing to put in pipelines, refusing to put in oil pipelines. So what happens? There's not enough natural gas, so people will use more oil and coal. There's not enough oil and natural gas, so people use more coal. And that actually happened. So the strategy of attacking everything equally is just attack, and it's so random. And the other thing is attacking the oil companies. Well, the oil companies and gas companies are now spending 10% of their budgets on environmental projects, especially sequestration of carbon and making things more energy efficient. These are not to be attacked. They should be working with the energy companies, because who has the technology? The energy companies. So that's another conclusion I have. If we're going to do anything, and I've heard of other answers, but they're all experimental. I once heard, by the way, you could, and Kim just mentioned something related too, but I've heard if you threw like iron into the ocean, who knows what that would do? It would cause more plankton. So, that could be a solution. Or even with Kim, you were saying, if carbon dioxide is increasing, maybe that will help the plant life and things will naturally balance. That said, look, this is a big concern, but Nick is right, and we're all right in the fact that, as we were just discussing with Wall Street Hackers, look, we're looking at Medicare and Social Security deficits that are staggering, and they've already spent the money, and the world is as promised free healthcare for aging populations. This is an economic problem, I think potentially a catastrophe that nobody's addressing because it's the third rail. And, just because it's the third rail doesn't mean you can't get electrocuted by it, third rail of politics. And so if the world's going to have the resources to even attempt to make changes here, we need to get our economies in order, and we need to avoid these other problems, especially, as Nick said, nuclear war. That would not help.
That would create global warming for sure.
I actually think that would just set us back to the dinosaur days,
Right. Start over again.
It's like I tell people, nature existed before man.
True.
And it certainly will exist better without us. We didn't help it, okay? But we can. But as you can see, there's energy out there we haven't tapped into or learned about. I've heard about, charging your phone with your orange. There's potato people who've built potato chargers.
Wow.
So you can stack potatoes and then run a wire through them and then charge your phone. So there is energy out there that we have not tapped into that, maybe we should look into it. I mean,
but Tim, I do have to throw in that orange, phones don't require a lot of energy. I mean, but I'm just saying, it's, heating my home does. Heating a home does.
I know. So I built solar collectors using, recycled cans and stacked them and put them into a box. And I use those to heat my home, and I save about $30 a month.
Technology is coming. You're right. Technology is coming. That's one of the, besides the energy companies.
And again, I didn't use big batteries like they're talking about that we're using with solar or anything. I used a bunch of recyclable cans and a recycled computer fan and recycled wood of a box.
You're right. There's a lot. And you know what? Even if you look at the forecast, solar is going to become much more efficient. It's on a curve, and it's it's climbing rapidly. So at some point, but it's not going to be so easy. But it's because, first of all, you may need silver for that. You need other material, plus you need land. And even that is an issue. You say, oh, well, we have plenty of land, but there's plenty of solutions too. Look, you can put solar on roofs, whatever. But, there's already an issue with farmland in the United States that they're putting in solar, and, then it takes up a farm, and it's like, then you have less food, so it's not an unlimited amount, but there is a lot of desert out there, but it costs a lot to put in. So I guess we'll see, which issue is foremost, but these are problems, and they're problems that most people either are so focused on to the exclusion of other issues, or they just totally ignore, depending on their political perspective.
Well, and I think that we just need to stay focused on it. And like Nick said, prioritize what we need to take care of first.
And there'll be a new area developed with technology and energy called NTech. Just like we have FinTech, financial technology, we'll have NTech, where more people that get involved in technology will use technology to improve energy situations around the world. But NTech isn't here yet, but it will be here probably by the end of the decade, and it'll be a big industry, just like FinTech is a big industry.
Now, do you have that NTech? Did you make that up, or can we?
Yeah, Nick just made it up, and you know what? Let's run with it. Let's run with it.
Go get the demand before somebody watches the show.
No, let's do it, Nick. I love it.
Well, unfortunately, this is all being broadcast, but unfortunately, I just made it up. Because I thought
it started here. NTech started here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it won't be here long if somebody grabs the name, right?
Well, we got to go to what's the name of that crazy place that get the domain name as quickly as possible.
Nick will have that bought in 5 minutes after
I can
the
name
show.
5 of them right away.
Energy technology, but it is certainly a possibility that we're going to see a future.
Technology is the only answer, because it's if not for it's not one. It doesn't look to be happening at all by 2050, whatever. We just heard forecasts. We see what's happening in the last 2 years. It's not going the right way. The population is expanding, demand for energy. So you can build a windmill, you can, put in solar, but all these countries around the world that are developing and increasing their populations and want their populations reasonably to have energy, well, that's offsetting it based on the data. So where's the progress? And
FinTech will solve the day.
Yeah, it's not going to be solved today. That's for sure.
Dum-da-dum, Intech.
Exactly. So
I'm starting a company right now, Nick, as we speak.
All right. Well, you
go
go Google it as soon as we get off the air.
And-
You know, use a domain registration company.
Right.
And Peter can talk us up and help us raise money.
There we go.
Yeah.
Invest in Intech.
Well, when we go to
Unfortunately,
Sarah,
I've been saying, I mean, you're the engineer, Kim. So you're the one to do
Invest in Intech.
it. Exactly. Intech is
hey, it's
better
the,
than crypto.
it's the new cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly. We should issue Intech. First thing we'll do is issue crypto, which we've said on Wall Street Hackers is, pretty much a scarce amount of nothing forever. And, that's, we've discussed that a lot of times, probably going to zero. So, all right. Well, thanks for watching. We are getting a little silly at the end, but there's a lot of serious issues. That's for sure. And These are really serious issues. The Medicare issue we just discussed on Social Security and deficits are a huge issue. This is a big issue, which needs to be resolved one way or the other. And so we just keep hammering away on Wall Street Hackers and the Energy Show. Thanks for watching. As Kim always says, get healthy and get
wealthy.
I got a new plan. I'll say the first half and you can say the second half.
Okay, you do it.
Get healthy.
Get wealthy.
That finally we got it down. You see? All right. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.